You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Chris in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, TV shows, games, books, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, Patreon members, and hello, Chris. Welcome back to another show, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
It's great. It's Thursday, so a day that we don't typically record on, but I had some stuff that happened yesterday. So this is a breakdown, though, of issue number 4, Shadow of Maul. This is now the second to last episode because there's only 5 in the series. I thought there were 6 originally, but maybe not. But nonetheless, this is the penultimate issue of Shadow of Maul. We'll break this down a little bit here in just a second. But hey, before we get started, how about some shout outs and thank yous to some very special people?
Yeah, we'd like to thank our Patreon members. We're going to start with our now part of the tribe level. Christina M, Will I M, my girl Paisley. I've got a Brad feeling, Rita Reborn, Jacob H, Josh C, Uncle Leon, Sharkman Dan, Alejandro, Jackson A, Daz Davies, Risk Bayless, Danny P, Mike Borda, Dante, a.k.a. Utini, and Kat, a.k.a. Vader's Girl. Thank you so much. Then for our highest level Patreon membership, Delusions of Grandeur, we got Now This Is Rod Racing, my guy Rod, Rob G, Steve C, and my girl Vanessa S. Thank you so much for your patronage and joining us here to support this fabulous podcast where we talk Star Wars.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. All the time.
Yeah. And we've got one big thing coming up. What is that, Chris, this weekend?
So coming this weekend, in honor of Father's Day, we're going to talk about Star Wars' ultimate father. That is Papa Palpatine. We're going to actually explore Palpatine's mythos in the Star Wars universe and essentially take a break from the Mandalorian and Grogu coverage that we've had. And we're going to celebrate this ominous villain, Sheev Palpatine, this coming Sunday, the 21st. Again, it's Father's Day, episode 666.
Yeah, appropriate that we would do 666 on Father's Day and make it about Sheev Palpatine. Yeah, it's a character that we haven't really talked about specifically. We've never actually done like a spotlight show on him, so I thought it'd be fun since it is Father's Day. It is 666, and who better to celebrate than him? So join us for that. Yeah, like I said, 9 p.m. Sunday afternoon, and let's see. Then beyond that, we've got a couple more shows that we'll get around to on the Mandalorian, Grogu, and right now we're kind of sitting on a cadence of Sundays being the public shows with Patreon in the middle. So that could change. Just really depends on what our schedule looks like. We also have Legacy. So that'll be coming up here next month. Legacy is the novel that takes place after The Last Jedi, but before The Rise of Skywalker. It takes place. It's about Princess Leia, General Leia, if you will, and Rey, and trying to rebuild the lightsaber and all that happens after The Last Jedi. So about halfway through that one right now, and we'll do kind of a non-spoiler and then a full spoiler breakdown of that coming in July once that the embargo has been lifted on that. So plenty more to come from us, and can't wait to talk about it all. So okay, why don't we get into issue number 4? And now this issue is kind of weird, not necessarily weird, but that's not the right choice of words. But it does take a break from kind of like the main story for just a little bit, because it does provide some background on what was happening with Rheena. I was calling her Gina. Rheena, and I was thinking Gina Davis and then Rheena, and I got Gina. All right, anyways, Rheena and Lawson. So we get some background story into that. So if you've not read these issues, we're about to spoil everything. So this is your warning. Go back and read them and come back to us if you want after you've had a chance to listen to them. But yeah, let's talk. Let me share my screen and we'll get into kind of the breakdown. Here's the cover here of issue number 4. And I don't know when this happens. Like some of this stuff is like there, and it's like, okay, we don't ever see this in the comic. Like
yeah,
never happened. You know what I mean? Like you've got Lawson there on a rope with 2 boots as well, and interesting.
Yeah, we see this a lot in like superhero comics where the cover will have the heroes or villains in a environment or doing something that they don't do at all in the comic.
Yeah. It's fine though, But yeah, let's. So we open up with Lawson kind of giving us a breakdown here of something that happens annually, and this is the Star Gauntlet, which is like an annual pod race that happens there. And because they are outside of the Imperial reign right now, right, and not until we get to the series do they actually show up. They're allowed to kind of have these pod races, and there's tons of accidents. There's a lot of shady stuff that's going on. There's a lot of credits that flow through Janix because, it's not regulated. And because it is all credits and it's kind of under the sheets, if you will, under the table, under the table, they only trade in like physical credits. So the amount of physical credits that exists on this planet that are kind of flowing through all the gambling spots and everything else is a huge, crazy amount. So everything's off the books as well. So there's nothing that's on there. But I thought this was interesting that, other pod races happen. We know the Bunta Eve pod race, and I think there's been, mentions of other ones in like various TV show episodes of like Clone Wars, maybe I think, and that sort of thing. But it was kind of cool to see that we open up with a pod race. It was nice.
Yeah, no, I thought this was a good intro. We've seen pod races here and there. I know in The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon said that, they have pod racing on Malastare. That was probably the first reference to pod racing ever. So yeah, it's cool to see it in other environments other than the desert environment of Tatooine. What I liked about this particular pod race is that it's a street race. There's not a set course for it. They just race on the streets. And then of course, because of that, it seems like every year there's like collateral damage from this race. So, there's extra stakes on the line to make sure that people stay safe because again, they're just these big, fast pod racers. They're just racing on the street. It's essentially a street race.
Yeah, it's like Fast and Furious, if you will, but Star Wars and
Star
pod
Wars
races.
with pods. Yeah.
Yep. And they at one point, I don't think I have it in the show notes, but at one point, Lawson's talking about how the police are just they're kind of like, they're not really trying to stop anything. Right. Their whole job is just like damage control. Right. Like they know people are going to die, things are going to get out of hand. But we'll just do our best to mitigate that as much as we can. Yeah,
there was a panel here where it's Lawson narrating, and he's we pretend it doesn't happen.
Yeah, right. So it is kind of it's kind of a deadly thing, and yet there's tons and tons of people that show up for this. You can see him up here on the top right hand corner, and later on we're going to show you a situation where things get out of hand because there's too many people around, and Lawson's trying to protect him as well. But while this is all kind of going on, Lawson does notice that there is one particular racer that is involved in all kinds of accidents. Think of like Sebulba, right? Every time Sebulba would pass somebody or got near someone, suddenly a racer would mysteriously just blow up somewhere, right?
Right.
And they're starting to take note of this, that there is this particular racer. I think he, at that point, gets the name of Tor Braxis, and he reaches out to Rheena and calls Rheena up and is like, hey, and you can see him down here on the screen there. You can see him. That's his pod race there, or racer right there. You can see him. We'll get a better shot of him a little bit later. I'm not even sure what kind of race he is, but he reaches out to Rheena and it's like, hey, what do you know about this person? And she's like, his name is Tor Braxis. And they start talking about how it's kind of a weird segue, but I guess it works. But she talks about how, hey, you remember us when we used to do pod racing? And I was like, what in the world? They used to pod race, And it's kind of a nice little way to kind of segue into that flashback moment. And so we get right into that without really knowing exactly what the outcome of this, question is going to be with this character named Tor Braxis, who's just destroying people. But there's Rheena right there. He's calling her via holo that you can see there. And then we get the flashback. So you can see there on, I don't know, your left, my right, whatever it is. You can see that's a younger Lawson there, and there's a younger Rheena. And the gist of it was that they used to, like, these crime lords would reach out to these bounty hunters and tell them, hey, we want you to race. And the bounty hunters were involved. And so these two decided at one point that, hey, you know what? Why don't we just team up and we'll start like trying to, whether it's bounties or whether it's races, whatever it is, the idea was that one person would get the bounty, or one person would get a mission, then go back, double cross that person that gave it to him. The other person would then reach out to a peer crime boss or whatever, betting person, and say, hey, look, if you give us more money, or if you give me more money, I'll do this, and that person won't win. And so they were kind of playing the whole system. Like everybody was getting played by these two. And this is kind of how they became a thing. Now, we don't get into like any more than that in terms of like their relationship. We know from, I think if it was either said in the StarWars.com type of stuff that was done after the episodes, but it was implied that they had a more like intimate relationship. At least that's how I think I read it. But none of that happens here. It feels like this is very much just professional. So this could be at the very beginning of their relationship. But we know based on some of the flashbacks that they brought in a lot of different people, got a lot of different crime lords and betting people to kind of go against each other. And it sounds like they made a ton of money, which I think is why when we see Rheena, she's got her own kind of like gambling casino that's really nice and elaborate. It looks like that's what she used her money to and spent it on once all this was over with.
Yeah, they seemed like a very... like Bonnie and Clyde, you know what I mean? They had like a Bonnie and Clyde vibe to them. And essentially what they did is, like you said, they would essentially double cross people that sent them on missions and have, the second crime lord, like you said, it's a typical double cross, typical Bonnie and Clyde.
Like a bidding war almost.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how they amassed a fortune. And I'm sure Rheena did something to swindle Lawson along the way, because, it looks like she ends up with most of the bounty, based on how we see her in the Maul Shadow Lord TV show. But, that I don't know if they'll get into that here, but hopefully they do sometime in the series. But I know in this particular issue, they don't. But I'm still curious because there's still more to know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I was thinking about that too. Like if they really want to do like a whole series, I mean, there's enough here just on the racing and this like double crossing of bounty hunters. There's like a whole series they could do there, right? If they want to do a comic series or write a book or something else with these characters, bring in other bounty hunters that we know that are around in this era. There's a lot of potential for that, but nonetheless, that's all we get. So we do get a background. So we know now how they met because they were both assigned to the pod race by somebody. So it wasn't, and they just kind of met on the off chance and decided to partner up at that point. So that's their origin. And then later on, they kind of established some level of relationship. Well, all this is done because now that since they've kind of given us the background of what they used to do, they noticed that this guy, Tor Braxis, is kind of doing the same thing. It looks, the pattern seems similar. He's taking out people and, every time he takes someone out, his value starts to rise in terms of, finishing the race. And so they're very conscious of this. And they get, Lawson is kind of spooked and he thinks, okay, something's big is going to happen where he's going to take out a lot of people so that way he can ensure that he wins the race. And where he decides to go is kind of at a choke point. So if you imagine, like Chris said, these races are out on the big streets. At some point, it all funnels down into a big, like, I'm going to call it a tunnel that goes into the undercity, right? So all these racers come into this one choke point. And so Lawson's like, hey, this is exactly what I would do. And so he heads out there along with Two Boots to try to get in front of Tor Braxis before he does all that. I have this up here. That's really nothing there, but I just like the little transition where like, it's half of him is the hollow because that's who he's talking to with Rheena. And then you can see his right side, which is talking to Two Boots. So Becky, the guy that is the artist on this, again, does a really great job. But you can see right here, here's that choke point that I was talking about.
Yep.
I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No. I was acknowledging. Yeah, I was just acknowledging this is the choke point, and the artistry is very good. Yeah. So you can see it kind of, it all funnels down into that tunnel, that hole right there. And you got a ton of people, like everybody's amassed here because they want to see the racers all come into this one choke point and go down and take the race down into the underground or belly of, Janix or whatever it is. So that's Two Boots up there along with Lawson. They're in their like police car. And, right when they're there, let me go back to the pictures here. So this place is it's very, very heavily congested. And you can see Lawson in there. He's worried because if there is going to be a big accident or casualties of the racers, these people are in like immediate harm's way because they're just standing there about ready to just get trashed by a bunch of
speed pod racers coming through. And so he starts telling everybody, hey, get out of here. You guys need to leave. And of course, they don't listen to him, right? They don't even know who he is. He's not flashing a badge or anything. And so they're just caught up. And you can see where that one lady's like, look, here they come. And so here come all these racers all at one time trying to get into this one choke point. And he resorts to like just going and firing his blaster off to get people to run. And they do. They start scattering everywhere. This is going to have a negative effect in just a second because Rule, the guy that's been chasing him, blaming him for the deaths of the 3 people in his little group that were assigned to him. He's the guy that showed up at the doorstep and then got gassed out by Vario. This guy then shows up and I was like, whoa, how did he know? Where did he come from? But I was like, all right, whatever. It's just complicated.
Yeah,
not gonna think too much about it, but he just showed up, but it's fine. He was there and he was like, hey man, you can't be firing. That's an illegal use of your firearm. I'm taking you in. This was like his opportunity to finally do all that. And just as he's about to like put the handcuffs on Lawson, that's when we get Tor Braxis doing something where he rams into one of them. You can see there's like a bunch of them. I have the whole thing here in just a second, but like all of these racers are coming together and he causes this massive like pod racer pileup. You can kind of see here that's very chaotic. I mean, there's a lot. I know there's a lot going on, but they're all like, I mean, there's pod racers everywhere blowing up. Yeah. People are getting, showered with shrapnel and fire and all kinds of damage. I mean, it's a very like horrific type of scene. But it's really cool. I like all the detail too in here. I mean, cool in the way that I like artists cool, but not necessarily in the event, but lots of different pod racers too. It was really, I was looking at them when I was reading this too and going, oh, that kind of looks like, Ben Quadraneros's Finn. This one looks like over here. This looks like Sebulba's part of it. It's just like a mixed match. Sebulba's, yeah. Yeah. It's like they just kind of took pieces of them and moved them around and, made their own little pod racers for this event. But yeah, so everybody's getting rained on with all this fire, and Rule, who is standing there, who was about to put those handcuffs on Lawson, he's standing there and Lawson like jumps and tells him to move and gets him out of the way at the last minute. So he kind of saved his life. Otherwise he would have, you can see the big explosion there in the background. So I don't know. We'll talk about that here in a second, because I am curious as to whether or not this changes anything for their relationship, since he just saved his life. But I gotta say, man, like the panels on this stuff, I know I only showed this one right here because we can't show everything, but there are lots of really, really good drawings and good artistry that's going on here.
Yeah. The artist here did a great job. I've been impressed by the artwork in this entire series, and this issue was no exception.
Yeah. And so while that's going on, so you've got the chaos of the race that's happening, and that has everybody talking, screaming, running around, right, physically there, and people are captured on the hollows and watching this stuff. But then, hey everyone, you've been listening to a preview of this Patreon exclusive episode. If you'd like to hear the full episode, as well as a huge back catalog of other Patreon exclusive material, head on over to patreon.com/CantinaCast and sign up for the We Are All the Republic tier at just $2 a month. That'll get you all of the audio episodes, or if video is your thing, please consider the This Is the Way tier at just $5 a month. There's also 2 higher tiers in Now Part of the Tribe and Delusions of Grandeur, which gets you a shout out at the start of every show, your name in the credits at the end, and more. Thank you so much to all of our Patreon members and all of our supporters, and may the force be with you always.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.